I want you to listen to these words carefully, because this audiobook is not like the others. It is not designed to entertain you, or to accompany you in the background, or to add another motivational phrase to your life. This audiobook is designed to challenge you, to break your patterns, to ignite within you a mental strength that you have probably felt, but never used to its fullest. I want you to think about something. How much of your true potential have you really used? Not how much you think you use, not how much you say you use. How much of what you are capable of being are you using today? Most people live below 10% of their mental and spiritual capacity, and not because they don't want more, but because they don't know how to access their inner power. They live conditioned by inherited beliefs, by fears disguised as prudence, by dreams they extinguished before even trying. They live trapped in a limited mental system, without realizing that the key to freedom has always been within them. This audiobook is that key. You are not here to listen to concepts. You are here to reprogram the way you think, the way you decide, the way you act, the way you relate to success, the way you interpret your life, and the way you connect with your purpose. If you are listening to this, it is no coincidence. Most people go through their entire lives without discovering how their own mind works, and that is why they repeat patterns, repeat mistakes, repeat cycles, but you are here, and that means that something inside you has already begun to awaken. What you are about to learn combines mental, energetic, and spiritual principles. It's not just about thinking positively, it's about thinking powerfully. It's not about wishing, it's about organizing your mind to create. It's not about dreaming, it's about becoming the kind of person who can make those dreams come true. Every word in this audiobook has been designed to activate areas of your mind that may have been dormant for years, areas where your creative instinct, your intuition, your clarity, and your ability to turn a thought into action and an action into reality reside. You will discover that your thoughts are not isolated ideas, they are forces, they are vibrations, they are energy that is projected, returns, and shapes your destiny. Understanding this principle and learning to master it marks the difference between a life that reacts and a life that is built. This audiobook will not ask you to believe anything blindly. It will invite you to experiment, to think, to question yourself, to confront your current identity and the version of yourself you are destined to be. Throughout the chapters, you will embark on a profound journey, but not an emotionally fragile one. It will be a conscious, strategic, powerful journey. Journey where you will learn to interpret your thoughts as tools, not obstacles. Use your subconscious mind as an engine for results. Raise your personal energy to attract opportunities. Break down beliefs that have limited you for years. Design a clear, firm purpose aligned with your essence. And build an unshakable mindset that will sustain you even in difficult times. This is an audiobook for those who are tired of living on autopilot, for those who feel they want more, but don't know where to start, for those who are ready to stop surviving and start creating. If you decide to listen to the end, you will not end up being the same person. You cannot be. Because a mind that expands to a higher perspective never returns to its previous size. So get ready because you are about to cross a threshold that divides ordinary life from extraordinary life. Welcome to the beginning of your transformation. Welcome to the door of your true mind. Welcome to the place where everything you are destined to build begins. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Inner Door. There are moments in life when an idea seems to stop time. An idea capable of reorganizing your priorities, your beliefs, your limits. An idea that suddenly shows you that you have lived too much outwardly and too little inwardly. That idea, although many overlook it, is as powerful as a revelation. Within you there is a door that determines everything you can achieve in the outside world. Maybe you were never told it this way. Perhaps you grew up believing that your destiny depended on external factors. The places where you were born, the people around you, the opportunities you had or didn't have, luck, the economy, circumstances. But none of those things explain why some people, with fewer resources, less knowledge, and less support manage to break any pattern and build an extraordinary life. Nor does it explain why others, even with all the advantages possible, remain paralyzed in a state of frustration, mediocrity, or resignation. The difference is not outside, the difference is inside. The difference is in that inner door. That door is neither mystical nor metaphorical. It is a real and tremendously practical concept. It represents your mental world, the collection of thoughts, beliefs, interpretations, and decisions that form your identity and determine your possibilities. Each person lives according to what they allow to pass through that door. Each person acts according to what they believe is possible behind it. And each person limits or expands themselves according to the degree of awareness with which they relate to that door. But here's the surprising thing. Most people live without knowing that door exists. They live like tourists inside their own minds. They react to the outside world as if they were leaves blown by the wind. They allow others to program their thoughts, impose their beliefs on them, limit their aspirations. They grow up believing that thinking is automatic, not something that requires direction, discipline, or intention. But you are not here to live on autopilot. You are not here to repeat the patterns of those who did not dare to do more. You are not here to be a spectator of your circumstances. You are here to understand the internal mechanism that governs your life, your energy, your purpose, and your ability to create a reality different from the one you have known until today. You are here to open the inner door and walk through it. The inner door is the basis of all transformation. Any progress in your life, whether financial, emotional, professional, or spiritual, only happens when the inner door is opened. If you don't open it, nothing changes. If you open it, everything starts to move. When a person wants to improve their life without changing their inner world, it's like trying to turn on a lamp without connecting it to the power supply. You can rub the bulb, you can shake it, you can ask it to turn on. But nothing will happen if you don't activate the internal source of energy. On the other hand, when you decide to change from within, your external life begins to respond as an inevitable reflection. This is one of the principles most ignored by those seeking quick results. They have formulas, tricks, shortcuts, and external strategies, but no external strategy works if your mind is not prepared to sustain the change. You can learn sales techniques, but if you believe you don't deserve prosperity, you will sabotage yourself. You can read about relationships, but if you feel you are not worthy, you will attract destructive dynamics. You can read about relationships, but if you feel you are not worthy, you will attract destructive dynamics. You can make plans, but if your internal dialogue is full of fear, you will never move forward. It all starts at the inner door. How is that door formed? That door is the invisible filter that interprets everything that happens to you. It was not formed in a day. It is made up of beliefs you absorbed as a child, phrases you heard over and over again, role models you observed, opinions of people who had achieved nothing, limiting ideas disguised as realism, experiences you interpreted with little emotional maturity, and experiences you interpreted with little emotional maturity. How is that door formed? That door is the invisible filter that interprets everything that happens to you. It was not formed in a day. It is made up of beliefs you absorbed as a child, phrases you heard over and over again, role models you observed, opinions of people who had achieved nothing, limiting ideas disguised as realism, experiences you interpreted with little emotional maturity, and experiences you interpreted with little emotional maturity. Childhood, phrases you heard over and over again, role models you observed, opinions of people who had achieved nothing, limiting ideas disguised as realism, experiences you interpreted with little emotional maturity, and, above all, conclusions you took for granted without ever questioning them. These beliefs became the guardians of your inner door. Some protect your greatness, but many steal it from you. And the worst thing is that limiting beliefs don't shout, they don't hit, they don't insult, They whisper. Invisible phrases like, "That's not for you. Don't get too excited. Don't dream. So big, you don't have what it takes. You have to be realistic. Others have already tried and failed. You weren't born with that talent." These whispers are the chains with which thousands of people bind themselves without realizing it. And most painfully, they believe that these whispers are their authentic voice, but they are not. They are mental residues from other people, embedded in your memory. And this is where the real transformation begins, when you decide to question every inherited belief, when you decide to examine where each limitation comes from, when you decide that you will no longer accept borrowed thoughts, when you decide to open that door and see what lies beyond. The inner door is a turning point. Throughout history, people who have achieved extraordinary feats went through a decisive moment, discovered the inner door, and decided to open it. Some did so after a crisis, others after an unexpected encounter, others after reading something that changed their perspective, others simply because one day they got tired of living the same way. That moment is a before and an after, because once the inner door is opened, you cannot close it again. Once you see your real possibilities, you cannot go back to pretending you didn't see them. Once you understand your own mental power, you can no longer live in willful ignorance. Opening that door is a commitment to your future. It is saying to life, "I am ready." It is saying to your doubts, "This far and no further." It is saying to your past, "You no longer rule my path." It is saying to yourself, "I decide who I am." The most powerful truth you will ever discover. The inner door does not open with force. It opens with awareness, with intention, with an internal decision that changes the energy of your entire life. Your mind is more powerful than you imagine, not by magic, not by superficial mysticism, but because it is the control center from which you interpret, choose, act, and create. What you master in your mind, you master in life. What you ignore in your mind controls you. From the shadows. This chapter is the beginning of an irreversible change. For the first time, you take control of your inner door. What happens when the door opens? When the inner door opens, you discover something that most people never get to see. That you are not limited by your circumstances, but by your thoughts. That your mind is not a repository of memories, but a generator of possibilities. That your ideas are not mere thoughts, but energetic instructions capable of shaping your reality. That your life is not predetermined, but determined by the choices you make on a mental level. And this is only the beginning. This chapter prepares you for the rest of the journey, a journey where you will rebuild your inner world with the same precision and firmness with which an architect designs the foundation of a building. Because if the internal structure is strong, everything you build on it will last. The inner door is already in front of you. From here on, we don't walk toward your future, we create it. Chapter 2. The Law of Living Thought. There is a truth that very few people are prepared to accept, not because it is complex, but because it implies responsibility. Every thought you have, absolutely, every single one, is alive. It is not a passing idea, it is not an innocent mental gesture, it is not an inconsequential internal murmur. It is energy, it is intention. In motion, it is the seed of the reality you are building, whether you like it or not. Here begins the law of living thought. Every thought is born, grows, acts, and returns. That's how it works. And this principle explains why your life moves forward, stagnates, improves, or worsens, even when you think you are doing nothing. Thought is the first movement of the personal universe, of every human being. Thought is not abstract. It is a force that works in silence. Most people believe that thinking is a neutral activity. They believe they can allow themselves weak, negative, defeatist, self-destructive thoughts and that this has no real impact. But your mind does not work that way. Your mind has a law. What you feed multiplies. A thought is not static. It has an energetic quality that seeks to express itself. It wants to manifest itself in emotions, decisions, actions, habits, and ultimately results. You think with mistrust, you act with fear. You think with greatness, you act with courage. You think with lack, you reject opportunities. You think with abundance, you create paths where others see nothing. You think it's impossible, you stop trying. You think it's inevitable, you start looking for ways to do it. This is not magic, it is psychological and energetic causality. This is how success works, how failure works, how your destiny works. Thought has life, and you are its creator. Every time you repeat a thought in your mind, you are feeding an energy that begins to grow within you. Little by little, that thought becomes stronger, more present, more dominant, until it becomes your inner emotional reality. And then something even deeper happens. Every strong thought attracts similar thoughts. A weak idea lives alone. A strong idea begins to build an entire system around it. That's why a thought of doubt attracts a swarm of doubts. Thought of confidence attracts an army of possibilities. A thought of I can't generates an ecosystem of limitations. A thought of I decide generates a field of personal power. Your mind is fertile. The question is, what seeds are you planting? Because the law of living thought does not stop to analyze whether the thought is good or bad for you. It simply expands it, gives it life, and that life ends up shaping your experience. Thought does not stay in your head. It becomes your identity. You may not have noticed, but what you think every day transforms into who you believe you are. And who you believe you are determines what you dare to do. If you think you don't deserve success, you act small. If you think success is for others, you become a spectator. If you think life is against you, you ignore opportunities. If you think you are capable, your brain starts looking for ways. If you think your vision is possible, your life organizes itself around it. Identity is not born from the outside. It is not born from your childhood. It is not born from what others said about you. It is born from your dominant thought. And here is one of the most powerful discoveries a human being can make. You can change your identity by changing your dominant thought. You don't need to wait months. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need your environment to change. You can change your identity by changing your dominant thought. You don't need to wait months. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need your environment to change. You can change your identity by changing your dominant thought. And here is one of the most powerful discoveries a human being can make. You can change your identity by changing your dominant thought. You don't need to wait months. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need your environment to change. You need to take control of the source. Your living thought. Your mind is a factory of realities. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a factory. It doesn't produce objects. It produces interpretations, emotions, impulses, and actions. Everything you experience externally is a product derived from what your mind manufactures. Person who thinks about possibilities manufactures creativity. Person who thinks about problems manufactures blocks. A person who thinks about growth manufactures opportunities. Person who thinks about lack manufactures excuses disguised as reasons. Person who thinks about greatness manufactures courageous decisions. And this reveals something essential. The mind does not work for you until you learn to direct it. Otherwise, it works on its own, without filters, without intention, without direction, and begins to manufacture realities based on fears, wounds, and past memories. The law of living thought forces you to take responsibility for your internal factory. The energy of thought travels and returns. Here we enter the energetic part of the process. A strong thought not only acts within you, it also acts outside of you. When you hold an idea with emotional intensity, your behavior changes without you realizing it. You speak differently, walk differently, relate differently, make different decisions, interpret the world differently. And the world reacts to that. Opportunities, people, circumstances, conversations, everything begins to align with the energy you emit. It's not superstition, it's consistency. When you change your mental vibration, you change the type of situations you are able to perceive. That's why there are people who say, since I changed my way of thinking, things started to happen. That never happened before. Of course, because before you couldn't see them. Because before you weren't ready to receive them. Because before, your energy rejected what you now attract. That's how a living thought returns in the form of results. The problem is not thinking, it is thinking without direction. Most people don't think, they react. Real thinking, intentional thinking, is a conscious act. It is choosing which idea deserves to grow in your mind and which should be expelled. But those who have not learned this law live in mental chaos. They think according to fear, according to the emotion of the day, according to the opinion of others, according to their past, according to what they hear, according to what they see, according to what they feel at a bad moment. And then they are surprised why their life is unstable. It is not life, it is the lack of mental direction. Undirected thinking makes you weak. Directed thinking makes you unstoppable. The question that changes everything. If you want to transform your life with this law, start with a question. What thought am I feeding today that I don't want to become my future? That question strips you bare, confronts you, forces you to see where you are sowing your energy. Then ask yourself, what thought should I start strengthening today so that my future will be different? That question puts you in the role of creator, not victim. The law of living thought requires courage, because to use this law to your advantage, you must assume something uncomfortable. If your thoughts create your reality, then you are responsible. Not your parents, not your boss, not your country, not your economy, not your luck, you. And that responsibility is not a burden, it is liberation. It means you can redesign your life at any time. It means you are not doomed to repeat your history. It means you always have power, even when you think you don't. This chapter is a powerful reminder. Starting today, you can no longer treat your thoughts as if they don't matter. You can no longer repeat phrases that diminish you without realizing it. You can no longer allow yourself to think small without feeling like you are betraying your own potential. Because now you know the truth. Every thought you keep alive becomes part of your destiny. This is the engine of change, and you have just started it. Chapter 3. Silence. Where it all begins. We live in a world saturated with noise. External noise, internal noise, emotional noise, digital noise, social noise. Most people spend their days responding to stimuli they have not chosen, messages, opinions, expectations, urgencies, distractions. But very few stop to listen to something infinitely more important, their own silence. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is the presence of clarity. It is the fertile ground where the most powerful ideas, the firmest decisions, and the thoughts that truly transform a life are born. And here is the paradox that no one wants to accept. The more noise a person has in their mind, the less control they have over their destiny. The more silence dominates within them, the stronger their ability to create. You cannot build greatness from mental chaos. You cannot create vision 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 from mental chaos. The more noise a person has in their mind, the less control they have over their destiny. The more silence dominates within them, the stronger their ability to create. You cannot build greatness from mental chaos. You cannot create vision if your mind is occupied with other people's opinions. You cannot discover your purpose if you are trapped in internal conversations that do not belong to you. You need silence. Real silence, deep silence, inner silence, because silence is the origin of every powerful beginning. Silence is not inactivity. It is strategy. There are people who believe that silence is passivity, that stopping to think is wasting time. But what they don't understand is that the great architects of history, the visionaries, the leaders, the creators, the inventors, the entrepreneurs who moved the world, depended more on their spaces of silence than on any other skill. Why? Because a mind that never stops does not see. A saturated mind does not distinguish. A restless mind does not create. A mind without silence repeats, but does not innovate. Silence is the secret laboratory of the mind. It is the place where you can analyze yourself without a mask, where you can see your mistakes without fear, where you can recognize your unabashed desires, and where you can reorganize your energy toward what really matters. Without silence, you become a victim of your impulses. With silence, you become the master of your decisions. Silence reveals what you are really thinking. There is an uncomfortable moment that most people avoid being alone with themselves, not because of lack of time, but because of fear. Fear of discovering that they have built an identity based on the opinions of others. Fear of seeing that their thoughts are more negative than they believed. Fear of realizing that external noise has been a distraction from facing their own truth. But silence does not come to judge you, it comes to reveal you, it comes to show you what you have not wanted to admit. And that is the first step of real growth. When you give yourself permission to observe your mind without noise, you begin to detect invisible patterns, the automatic phrases you say without thinking, the defeatist thoughts that appear uninvited, the beliefs you inherited without questioning, the fears you have unwittingly fed, the ideas that motivate you but which you ignore because they seem too big. Silence is a mirror, and what it reflects gives you the power to redesign yourself. Silence is the cradle of intuition. There is an intelligence within you that does not speak with words, that does not shout, that does not demand. It is precise, profound. It is your intuition. It is not magic, it is not fantasy, it is your ability to perceive truths that your rational mind has not yet processed. But intuition cannot speak to you if your mind is cluttered with noise. Only in silence can you hear that inner impulse that tells you, this way, don't accept that. This is the moment. Speak, wait, move forward, change. The world's great leaders trust their intuition, not because it is infallible, but because it is quick, deep, and connected to an inner wisdom that goes beyond immediate logic. Intuition does not decide from fear, it does not decide from scarcity, it decides from truth. A truth that only emerges when you listen to it in silence. Silence clarifies your purpose. Purpose is not discovered amid noise. It does not appear on a day saturated with obligations. It is not revealed in an environment that demands more from you than it gives back. Purpose arises when you return to the essential. Who are you? What do you want to contribute? Why are you here? What are you created to build? These questions have no superficial answers. They are questions that are answered from silence, not from haste. They are answered by looking inward, not outward. Who are you? What do you want to contribute? Why are you here? What are you created to build? These questions have no superficial answers. They are questions that are answered from silence, not from haste. They are answered by looking inward, not outward. They are answered from honesty, not from comparison. Silence shows you your authentic desires, not those that others taught you to desire. It shows you your hidden talents, not those that others approved of. It shows you your repressed dreams, not those that seemed realistic to you. In silence, you find your truth, and a person who finds their truth becomes unstoppable. Silence is the source of mental clarity. Clarity is one of the most powerful tools a human being can possess. Clarity allows you to make decisions without hesitation, to move forward without distraction, to say yes with conviction and no without guilt. It allows you to choose paths. It allows you to avoid huge mistakes. It allows you to save years of your life. Clarity allows you to make decisions without hesitation. It allows you to move forward without distraction. It allows you to say yes with conviction and no with guilt. It allows you to choose paths. It allows you to avoid huge mistakes. It allows you to save years of your life. But clarity is not born from noise. It is born from silence. When you give yourself space to think without interruptions, extraordinary things begin to happen. Ideas that previously seemed confusing become organized. Problems that seemed enormous are reduced to their true size. Goals that seemed distant become achievable. Decisions that you avoided become obvious. Creative solutions appear out of nowhere. Because silence reorganizes your mind, and an organized mind is a powerful mind. Silence connects you to your real energy. Each person has a unique energy, a vibration of their own, a level of inner strength that can empower or weaken their path, but that energy becomes contaminated when you live surrounded by emotional, mental, and social noise. Silence purifies. Silence cleanses. Silence recalibrates. Silence brings you back to your center. It is in silence that you can feel how much energy you have lost and how much you can recover. It is in silence that you can measure how much strength you have and how much you can expand it. It is in silence that you can reconnect with your inner vision, your ambition, your essence, and your greatness. There is no real growth without silence. There is no transformation without silence. There is no leadership without silence. The world fears silence because silence makes you powerful. Today's society is designed to distract you. Notifications, screens, worries, constant urgencies. Everything competes for your attention. Why? Because a distracted person is manipulable, a noisy person is weak, a person without silence does not think for themselves, they only react. But a person who masters silence, that's another story. A person who thinks clearly, acts with intention, decides from a place of strength and not fear. Such a person breaks patterns, builds paths, sets direction, changes their life and changes the lives of others. Silence makes you the master of your mind, and those who master their mind master their destiny. This chapter is a key invitation. Claim your silence, not external silence, but internal silence. The silence where your thoughts stop running wild and begin to align. The silence where energy becomes organized. The silence where your vision becomes clear. The silence where your purpose is born. The silence where your best decisions appear. The silence where you become you. This is where it all begins. Not outside, inside. Not in noise, in silence. Because an extraordinary life does not begin with action, it begins with clarity, it begins with an orderly mind, it begins with a clear vision, it begins with firm thinking. It begins in silence. Chapter 4. Faith as Creative Energy. There is a word that has been used so much, misunderstood so much, and emptied of meaning so many times that many people no longer understand its true power. Faith. Reduce it to hope, others confuse it with optimism, others see it as something strictly spiritual or religious, and others relate it to waiting for something external to come and save them. But true faith, the faith this chapter explores, the faith that transforms, the faith that creates extraordinary results, is none of those things. Faith, in its most powerful definition, is the inner conviction that makes possible what seemed impossible. Faith is not wishing. Faith is not hoping. Faith is not assuming. Faith is knowing. It is knowing before seeing. It is believing before there is evidence. It is behaving as if it were inevitable, even when circumstances scream the opposite. It is the internal energy that moves mountains because it first moves your mind. Faith is not religious. It is mental, emotional, and energetic. The faith we are talking about here works the same for a businessperson as it does for an artist, an athlete, an entrepreneur, a parent, or a leader. It does not depend on specific beliefs. It depends on the inner programming that you build. Faith is the emotional force that turns a thought into action. It is the engine that drives you when logic is not enough. It is the energy that keeps your vision alive in the midst of chaos. It is the internal vibration that acts as a magnet for opportunities that others do not see. Faith is a creative energy because it gives life to what you imagine. Without faith, a dream remains a desire. With faith, a dream becomes a project. With constant faith, a project becomes reality. Faith is a decision rather than an emotion. Many people wait to feel faith to start something, as if it were an emotional state that comes through inspiration. But real faith is not born from feeling secure. It is born from deciding to believe. Emotion comes later. Action comes later, and results come much later. Faith comes first. Faith says, I don't know how, but I know I can. I don't have the evidence yet, but I have certainty. It's not happening yet, but I know it will. I don't see the whole path, but I take the next step. Those who wait for proof before believing never build anything great. Those who decide to believe before having proof end up creating the proof. Faith is the antidote to doubt. Doubt is one of the most destructive mental forces that exist, not because it is loud, but because it quietly infiltrates the most important moments. Doubt paralyzes. Doubt robs you of vision. Doubt makes you back down when you should move forward. Doubt convinces you that you are small when your potential is enormous, but faith neutralizes doubt. It doesn't eliminate it from the world, but it defeats it within you. Every time you choose faith, you are sending a signal to your mind. I am stronger than my fears. My vision is worth more than my insecurities. My future outweighs my past experiences. Doubt ties you down. Faith sets you free. Doubt extinguishes energy. Faith ignites it. Doubt sinks you. Faith propels you forward. Faith is not positive thinking. It is powerful thinking. Positive thinking is a superficial state. Everything will be fine. Faith is different. Everything will be fine because I will build it. Faith does not make you passive, it makes you responsible. It does not give you excuses, it gives you direction. It does not numb you, it awakens you. It does not depend on luck, it depends on your mindset. Positive thinking waits. Faith acts. Faith activates the subconscious mind. There is a profound reason why faith is creative. Your subconscious obeys your deepest beliefs, not your most superficial desires. If you want to prosper, but deep down you believe you don't deserve it, your subconscious will sabotage every step forward. If you want to move forward, but you believe you are not ready, your subconscious will hold you back. If you want a better life but believe you are doomed by your past, your subconscious will replay your story like a broken record. But if you have faith, a firm, emotional, repeated, vibrant faith, the subconscious receives a completely different message. It begins to look for solutions. It begins to bring opportunities. It activates your creativity, transforms your perception, removes mental blocks, strengthens your discipline, and turns you into someone capable of sustaining the greatness you desire. Faith reprograms your internal system, changes the way you interpret the world, transforms your emotional energy, and that energy transforms your experience. Faith is sustained action. Even when progress seems invisible, The biggest mistake those who try to grow make is to believe that faith is demonstrated only by feeling, but true faith is demonstrated by a commitment to keep moving forward when the results have not yet arrived. Those who give up early do not fail because of a lack of ability, they fail because of a lack of faith. Faith allows you to continue a project when no one believes in it, to work for your vision when it has not yet borne fruit. It allows you to maintain your energy when obstacles appear, to resist criticism, rejection, or temporary failures, to reinvent yourself without losing your essence, to persist until your vision materializes. Faith does not avoid challenges. Faith transforms you to overcome them. Faith does not wait, it provokes. People who achieve extraordinary results do not sit around waiting for perfect signs. They create the signs. They don't wait for the path to be clear. They clear the path. They don't wait for guarantees before acting. They act and build guarantees in the process. This is the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary life. Faith turns a person into a protagonist. Lack of faith turns them into a spectator. Faith creates magnetism. There is something deeply energetic about faith. Person with faith generates a different vibration, a different body language, a different look, a different way of presenting themselves to life. And like all energy, it attracts, not because of mysticism, but because of consistency. Confident people attract allies, secure people attract opportunities, determined people attract resources, clear people attract paths, committed people attract results. Faith orders your energy and the world responds. Faith is the root of every achievement you will have in your life. Nothing great begins with evidence. Everything great begins with vision. Everything great begins with a person who at some point said, I know, I can. I know I will succeed, and I will prove it. Faith moves your mind, and your mind moves your decisions. Your decisions move your life, and your life moves your destiny. Faith is the beginning of everything. This chapter is a statement. You must believe before you see. If you want to use your full mental capacity, if you want to expand your energy, if you want to transform your destiny, you must master this principle. Your life will be the size of your faith, not the size of your resources, not the size of your circumstances, not the size of your education, not the size of your past, but the size of your faith, because faith does not give you guarantees. It gives you power. It does not give you security. It gives you vision. It does not give you shortcuts. It gives you strength. And that strength, when it is held steady, when it is fed day after day, when it becomes an essential part of your identity, that strength creates the life you are meant to live. Chapter 5. The Invisible Teacher. There is a concept that many feel, that few understand, and that almost no one learns to consciously use: the presence of the invisible teacher. It is not an external being, nor a spirit, nor a physical mentor, nor something mystical or supernatural. The invisible teacher is your higher intelligence, that level of understanding and clarity that exists within you, but which does not operate under the daily noise or the limited logic of everyday life. It is the part of your mind that perceives what your racing thoughts cannot see. It is the part of your energy that picks up signals that your distracted attention does not register. It is the part of your consciousness that can guide you to wiser, bolder decisions that are more aligned with your purpose. Many have felt its presence at key moments. When an idea suddenly appears, when a solution comes effortlessly, when an intuition tells you what to do before the data confirms it, when you feel that something inside you knows the answer. That is the invisible teacher. And learning to collaborate with it is one of the most transformative skills you can develop. The invisible teacher is your mind in a state of power. Your mind has several levels. The surface level, where daily concerns, to-do lists, noise, and distractions live. And then there is the deep level where vision, creativity, intuition, clarity, and inner wisdom live. The invisible teacher lives there. It is not subject to the chaos of the outside world. It is not conditioned by the opinions of others. It is not limited by your past. It is not dominated by fear. It is your most powerful part. It is your inner guide. It is your source of direction, your higher consciousness. But this invisible teacher has one condition. It only appears when you become conscious enough to hear it. Most people never know it and live lost. People live trapped on the surface of their minds. The part that reacts, doubts, worries, gets distracted, fills with noise, and as long as they live there, they will never meet their invisible teacher. That is why so many people feel confused, feel lost, make hasty decisions, repeat mistakes, sabotage themselves, regret, miss opportunities, and fall into the same pattern over and over again. It is not bad luck, it is not a lack of intelligence, it is not incapacity, it is disconnection. When you are disconnected from your higher level of consciousness, your life becomes a sequence of impulses, reactions, and clumsy decisions. But when you begin to connect with that invisible teacher, your life takes on a new direction, one that is clearer, deeper, and more aligned. The invisible teacher appears when you tap into your own inner leadership. It's not an external coach, it's not a mystical voice. It's the version of you that thinks with precision, with purpose, with vision. It's the part of you that doesn't let itself be intimidated by challenges, that doesn't give up at the first obstacle, that doesn't abandon its mission. We all have an inner part that seems to know more, a part that says, this isn't for you. Be careful, this path will betray you. It's this way, even if you don't understand why yet. That's not your standard. That relationship detracts from you. That project does have potential. Take a risk. This is your moment. The difference between ordinary people and extraordinary people is simple. The extraordinary listen to that voice and act accordingly. The invisible teacher combines intuition, experience, and future vision. It is not a vague feeling, it is not chance, it is not emotional fantasy. Your invisible teacher is an active mental force that merges your accumulated knowledge, your learning, your natural survival instinct, your creativity, your ability to project, your emotional intelligence, and your energetic connection to your deepest desires. It is the part of you that thinks without pressure, without anxiety, without self-imposed limits. It is your higher self, your mind at its best. The more you listen to it, the stronger it becomes. At first it may be a subtle intuition, then it becomes a firm message, and if you continue to pay attention to it, it becomes a complete system of inner guidance. People who learn to collaborate with their invisible teacher develop a clarity that others do not have, an intuition that seems to anticipate events, an ability to make the right decisions quickly, and an effortless strategic vision. People who learn to collaborate with their invisible teacher develop a clarity that others do not have, an intuition that seems to anticipate events, an ability to make the right decisions quickly, an effortless strategic vision, and a self-confidence that does not need external validation. It is as if life becomes orderly, as if paths align, as if the right person appeared at the right time, as if your energy began to attract what previously seemed inaccessible. It's not luck, it's inner guidance. The invisible teacher doesn't compete with the noise, it overcomes it. The reason many people don't listen to their inner guidance is not that it doesn't exist, it's that they have too much noise competing with it. Fear, insecurity, anxiety, doubts, voices from the past, other people's opinions, distractions, comparisons, superficial urgencies. The invisible teacher does not shout, he speaks with firmness, but he does not compete. To hear him, you must rise above the noise. That is your job, not his. The question that activates your invisible teacher. If you want to empower this higher intelligence, there is one key question. What would my wiser self do in this situation? That question immediately connects you to your higher level, separates you from fear, disconnects you from emotional impulses, puts you in leadership mode, allows you to see further, allows you to act from your future, not your past. Your invisible teacher responds when you rise above. The invisible teacher does not protect you from pain, guides you toward your destiny, does not avoid challenges, does not keep you in your comfort zone, does not spare you discomfort. Its purpose is not to keep you safe. Purpose is to lead you to your greatness. Sometimes it pushes you to make difficult decisions. Sometimes it forces you to leave behind relationships that hold you back. Sometimes it demands that you abandon destructive habits. Sometimes he pushes you to take scary risks. Sometimes he tells you to close cycles. Sometimes he tells you to wait. Sometimes he tells you to speed up. He doesn't work for your comfort. He works for your evolution. The invisible teacher is your most powerful ally. When you work with him, your vision expands, your mindset strengthens, your purpose aligns, your energy rises, your intuition sharpens, your decisions improve, and your results multiply. Many seek external mentors. And that's fine, but no external mentor will be more powerful than the elevated version of yourself. That version is your invisible teacher. That is the internal leader who will take you to your full potential. That is the ally who never abandons you. That is the guide whose voice pushes you towards your destiny. You don't have to look for it. It already lives within you. You have to recognize it, listen to it, and act. This chapter is a revelation. You already have the guidance you need within you. Don't wait for the world to give you permission. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. Don't wait for external signs to confirm your path. The invisible teacher is already speaking to you, and now you know it. If you decide to listen to it, your life will accelerate. If you decide to act from it, your story will change. If you decide to trust your higher self, your destiny will be transformed. There is within you a consciousness that already knows where you are going. Now it's up to you to follow it. Chapter 6. The Alliance with the Subconscious Mind. There is a force within you that works 24 hours a day. It does not rest, it does not get distracted, it does not question, it does not debate, it does not interpret, it simply executes. That force is your subconscious mind. While you talk, it listens. While you think, it records. While you hesitate, it stores. While you dream, it operates. While you act, it directs from behind the curtain. The subconscious mind is the silent engine of your life. And the most surprising thing is that most people never learn to communicate with it, never form a conscious alliance with it, and therefore live as passengers in their own existence, not as drivers. This chapter exists to change that. This chapter teaches you how to turn your subconscious mind into your most powerful ally. Because when you are able to direct it, nothing is beyond your reach. The subconscious mind does not choose, it obeys. People often believe that the subconscious mind analyzes what you tell it and decides whether to accept it or not, but it doesn't work that way. The conscious mind decides, the subconscious executes. Does not reason, compare, judge, or distinguish between joke or truth, between desire or fear, between possibility or impossibility. It responds to only one thing: emotional repetition. Every thought you repeat with emotion, every message you hold with intensity, every feeling you feed with strength, becomes a command to your subconscious mind, and it will do everything possible to turn that command into your reality. That is why there are people who know what they want but get the opposite, because their conscious mind says one thing, but their subconscious is programmed for another. Your subconscious is your true autopilot. When you learn something new, your conscious mind works hard. But when you repeat it enough, it passes into the subconscious, and there it becomes a habit. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way you react, the way you relate to others, the way you think about yourself, your level of ambition, your tolerance for success, your self-image, your fears, your limits, your aspirations. Your automatic decisions. You don't decide most of that today. You decided it years ago, and your subconscious simply continues to execute it. Your current life is a reflection of the past you installed within yourself. The good news is that you can reprogram it. The great news is that you can do it starting now. The subconscious mind responds to identity, not intention. Here is one of the most difficult truths to accept. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you believe you are in life. Your subconscious works in favor of your identity, not your desires. If you identify yourself as someone who is insecure, it sabotages you to maintain that identity. If you identify yourself as someone who is capable, it pushes you to make decisions that validate that capability. If you identify as someone destined for small things, it keeps you away from big things. If you identify as someone valuable, it keeps you away from what diminishes your value. The subconscious always seeks consistency between what you believe yourself to be and the life you live. If you want a new life, you first need a new internal identity, and that identity is built through an alliance with your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is programmed with 3 elements: repetition, emotion, and language. Subconscious programming is not magic, it is mental mechanics. 1. Repetition. What you repeat, the mind records. It learns by insistence, not by intention. 2. Emotion. Emotion accelerates subconscious learning. A belief charged with emotion is a priority command. 3. Language. What you say, even silently, is a command. Your subconscious takes your words literally. That's why you can't allow yourself expressions like, I can't, I'm no good at this, I'm not good enough, I'm afraid, it's impossible, I always fail, I have no luck. Your subconscious mind does not understand metaphors. It takes these phrases as instructions and then acts to fulfill them. The conscious alliance with your subconscious begins when you stop talking to it as an enemy. Many people treat their subconscious mind as if it were a virus. Why do I always do this? Why am I like this? Why do I ruin everything? Why is it so hard for me? What's wrong with me? Many people treat their subconscious mind as if it were a virus. Why do I always do this? Why am I like this? Why do I ruin everything? Why is it so hard for me? What's wrong with me? But true transformation occurs when you understand that your subconscious is not an enemy, but a poorly trained assistant. It has followed the orders that you or your environment gave it for years. It's not trying to destroy you, it's trying to please you. If you gave it the wrong orders, it gave you the wrong results. If you give it new orders, it will give you a new life. Your subconscious mind is the bridge between what you think and what you experience. Most people believe that their actions determine their destiny. And yes, actions matter, but the source of those actions is your subconscious. Why do some people act with confidence and others don't? Why do some see opportunities and others see threats? Why do some persist and others give up? Why do some reinvent themselves and others sink? Because their subconscious minds are programmed differently. You don't act according to your desires. You act according to your subconscious beliefs. Your subconscious defines what you tolerate, what you accept, what you reject, what you allow yourself, what you forbid yourself, what you dare to do, what scares you, what you seek, what you ignore, what you expect. It is the true architect of your behavior. That's why this chapter is not just about understanding, but about learning to direct. When you ally yourself with your subconscious, you multiply your mental strength. When consciousness and subconscious work together, your life enters a new level. Your energy expands, your clarity increases, your decisions become quick, your confidence rises, your vision strengthens, your intuition activates. It's like having an internal team playing in your favor. But here's the most fascinating part. When Your subconscious accepts an idea. It starts working to make it a reality without you having to force anything. It doesn't fight, it doesn't hesitate, it doesn't slow down. It simply executes. An aligned subconscious mind can achieve in weeks what a chaotic mind cannot achieve in years. The subconscious alliance is the foundation of lasting success. You can have talent, discipline, contacts, motivation, but if your subconscious is not aligned with your vision, you will self-destruct halfway through. You may have fears, insecurities, wounds, doubts, but if your subconscious accepts a new identity, you will rebuild yourself from within. What sustains your success is not your external strength, it is your internal programming. This chapter is a direct invitation. Train your subconscious to work for you. Don't wait to feel confident to act. Program it. Don't wait to feel deserving to start. Install it. Don't wait to see results to believe. Believe, and your subconscious will seek the results. A new life begins when you create an alliance with the part of your mind that truly has the power. The conscious mind decides, the subconscious transforms. And when both are aligned, there are no limits. Chapter 7. The Ritual of Elevated Thinking. In all human processes, there is a tipping point. The moment when you decide to think differently from the majority. That is the moment when you separate yourself from the average. That is the moment when your life begins to elevate. That is the moment when, even though the world remains the same, you are no longer the same. People believe that a powerful mindset is built spontaneously, as if it were an internal accident, when in reality it is training, a ritual, a set of daily decisions that shape the way you interpret everything that happens around you. High thinking is not thinking pretty. High thinking is not meaningless motivation. Thinking big is thinking above fear, above doubt, above noise, above your surroundings, above your old self. Thinking big is a higher pattern of thinking, and anyone who has achieved extraordinary results in any field has developed it deliberately. This chapter will teach you how to create that pattern within yourself, not as a theory, but as a ritual. Elevated thinking turns your challenges into momentum. Most people react to problems from an immediate emotional response. They get frustrated, angry, complain, give up, or freeze. Elevated thinking does the opposite. It transforms the challenge into question, the question into a strategy, the strategy into action, and the action into growth. This mental ritual leads you to ask yourself questions that the average person never asks. What can I learn here? What opportunity is hidden in this? How can I come out of this situation stronger? What courageous decision will prevent this from happening again? What new version of myself does this moment require? Elevated thinking does not prevent problems. It uses them, transforms them into mental training, uses them as fuel, and makes them part of your evolution. Elevated thinking requires you to become an observer, not a victim. Elevated thinking does not avoid problems. It uses them, transforms them into mental training, uses them as fuel, makes them part of your evolution. Elevated thinking requires you to become an observer, not a victim. The average person lives inside their thoughts, caught up in every emotion, going from one extreme to the other. The elevated thinker takes a different position, the position of the observer. Observing means you don't react impulsively. It means you see the thought before you accept it, you see the emotion before you act on it, you see the pattern before you repeat it. When you observe, you choose. When you choose, you master. When you master, you create. Being an observer places you above your impulses. Being a victim places you below your circumstances. This ritual of observation is the core of elevated thinking. Elevated thinking demands a higher standard of you. Here is a key phrase. Your life will always be aligned with your internal standard, not your desires. You can desire whatever you want, but you will only receive what your mindset is prepared for. Elevated thinking forces you to review your standards. How do you treat yourself? What do you tolerate? What do you allow? What do you ignore? What do you accept? Who do you surround yourself with? How do you talk about yourself? How do you present yourself? What excuses do you make? What boundaries do you maintain? What habits do you continue to reinforce? People who truly grow are those who decide to raise their internal standards before their external life changes. First they raise their mindset, and then their reality has no choice but to follow. A raised mindset requires a clean mental environment. You cannot build elevated thinking in a contaminated mind, contaminated with comparisons, contaminated with emotional drama, contaminated with negative conversations, contaminated with people who lie asleep, contaminated with news that feeds fear, contaminated with habits that drain your energy. Elevated thinking needs space. Just as an athlete takes care of their body, you must take care of your mind. You cannot allow just any information to enter. You cannot let just anyone influence you. You cannot feed your mind emotional garbage and expect mental clarity. Your mind is your most valuable tool. Protecting it is your responsibility. Elevated thinking does not activate on its own. It is trained with rituals. People who think big do not think that way by accident. They have rituals, they have practices, they have internal rules, they have mental focus exercises, they have training patterns. Here are the most important ones. 1. The ritual of immediate replacement. Whenever a limiting thought appears, you immediately replace it with a more powerful one. You don't fight it, you substitute it. The ritual of the courageous question. When a fear appears, you ask yourself what decision the strong version of yourself would make. 3. The ritual of positive anticipation. Every day you decide to expect opportunities, not problems. Your mindset aligns with what you want to attract. 4. The clear direction ritual. Before ending the day, you define what is important tomorrow. Your mind sleeps aligned with purpose. The elimination ritual. Each week, you eliminate a habit, thought, or person that detracts from you. Elevated thinking needs free space. Elevated thinking turns the mind into an ally, not a saboteur. An untrained mind can become your worst enemy. It questions your decisions, exaggerates your fears, minimizes your abilities, and threatens your confidence. But a trained mind, a mind that has adopted rituals of elevated thinking, becomes your ally, your advisor, your strength, your guide, your protection, your engine, your mental backbone. Elevated thinking does not promise you perfect days. It promises you a mind powerful enough to overcome imperfection. Elevated thinking changes who you are, and that changes what you attract. One of the most profound transformations occurs when you realize something essential. The universe does not respond to what you want, it responds to what you have become. When you think small, you act small. When you act small, you get small results. When you think big, you act with greatness. When you act with greatness, your life expands. High thinking alters your energy, and high energy alters your results. That's why people who start these kinds of rituals say things like, I'm seeing opportunities I didn't see before, I feel clearer, I'm making better decisions, I'm respecting myself more, I'm stopping sabotaging myself, I'm attracting a different kind of people. My vision is growing. It's not magic, it's consistency. This chapter is a call to elevate your thinking as an act of power. If you want your life to level up, you must first level up your mind. If you want better results, you first need better thinking. If you want to change your destiny, you must first change your mental standards. Elevated thinking is not a technique, it is an identity, and starting today you can choose it. Chapter 8. Vibration and Attraction. Most people believe that their lives are governed by circumstances, coincidences, or isolated decisions. They believe that everything happens for no reason, because life is unpredictable, unfair, or capricious. However, there is something that Napoleon Hill discovered after interviewing hundreds of successful men and women. From inventors to entrepreneurs, leaders, scientists, and visionaries. Life responds to the vibration that a person holds internally, long before anything happens externally. Hill did not call it vibration to sound spiritual. He called it vibration because he understood that the human mind emits an emotional and mental frequency that can be felt, perceived, and ultimately attract. He understood this when he saw that people with minimal resources achieved enormous changes, while privileged people remained stuck their entire lives. What was the difference? The internal vibration, the dominant energy, the sustained emotion, the deep conviction, that invisible field that each person carries with them like a kind of personal atmosphere. Vibration is not a romantic idea, it is an inevitable reality. If someone lives with fear in their heart, that fear organizes their energy, and everything they perceive is filtered through that vibration. If someone lives with resentment, their vibration becomes dense, heavy, hard, and everything in their life aligns with that state. On the contrary, a person who lives from determination, from clarity, from vision, has a completely different vibration. A vibration that expands, that opens up possibilities, that illuminates paths. Here is the part that many do not want to accept. You don't attract what you say you want. You attract what you are in essence at this moment. Your vibration is your silent statement to the universe. It is your energetic identity. It is the message you send even when you are not speaking. You can affirm that you want abundance, but if you vibrate in lack, you will attract more lack. You can say you want love, but if you vibrate in insecurity, you will attract insecure relationships. You can claim that you deserve opportunity, but if you vibrate in doubt, you will attract situations that confirm that doubt. Gill was fascinated to observe how some people spoke with absolute conviction about their goals, even when they had nothing to back them up. Men ruined by financial bankruptcy who continued to vibrate in prosperity, women rejected for years who continued to vibrate in determination. Young people without resources who vibrated in possibility, and without exception, opportunities always ended up appearing. Not immediately, not magically, but consistently with the vibration they sustained. Vibration is the root of attraction. Everything else, resources, contacts, skills, luck, comes later. Thought is the first level, emotion is the second, vibration is the result of both, and attraction is the inevitable consequence of vibration. Everything else, resources, contacts, skills, luck, comes later. Thought is the first level, emotion is the second, vibration is the result of both, and attraction is the inevitable consequence of vibration. When someone sustains a powerful vibration, they don't need to convince anyone, they don't need to beg, pressure, impress, or manipulate. Strong vibration speaks for itself. It is the reason why certain people change the atmosphere when they enter a room or why others generate instant rejection, not because of their appearance or superficial personality, but because of the energy they wear like an invisible suit. Napoleon Hill explained that the human mind is a transmitting and receiving station. It transmits thoughts charged with emotion and at the same time receives thoughts and influences of the same frequency. That is why two people with similar mindsets often find each other and connect without apparent explanation. That is why opportunities appear when you raise your vibration, not when you desperately search for solutions. Life does not respond to despair. Despair vibrates with need, and need repels. Vibration is not raised by shouting out desires. It is raised by adjusting your inner identity. You do not attract what you say. You attract what you believe. You do not attract what you imagine. You attract what you hold emotionally. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you accept as a deep truth about yourself. This is where many people fail. They don't work on their vibration, they work on their results. And vibration always precedes the result. It's useless to fight externally if you vibrate in contradiction with yourself. It's useless to repeat, "I'm going to do it." If inside you vibrate with, "I'm not good enough, this is too much, I'm sure to fail," it's useless to read books or listen to motivational speeches. If your inner vibration is still tied to old experiences, old wounds, or inherited beliefs, raising your vibration is not an intellectual act, it is an emotional act, and even more so, it is a commitment to a new identity. When you decide to raise your vibration, you are saying, "I no longer live according to my past, I live according to my vision." Hill interviewed people who had lost everything and yet still vibrated as if success were inevitable. He interviewed people who had been rejected hundreds of times and still vibrated with possibility. He interviewed visionaries who had nothing but an idea, but their vibration was so strong that sooner or later, reality adjusted to them. People who change the world first vibrate in greatness. Greatness comes after. Vibration is not acted upon, it is felt, it is integrated, it becomes part of you, and when it changes, everything around you begins to change. First subtly, then obviously, and finally irreversibly. High vibration attracts different conversations, different decisions, different opportunities, different people, because attraction is a mechanism of correspondence. Everything that comes into your life comes because it matches you. This does not mean that life is perfect, it means that life responds. When you vibrate in fullness, your experience changes. When you vibrate in clarity, your path opens up. When you vibrate in purpose, doors begin to align, not because you ask for it, but because you are now at the right frequency to receive it. Here is the most fascinating thing. Your vibration is always completely changeable. It doesn't matter what your story is, it doesn't matter what you've been through, it doesn't matter what you've been led to believe, it doesn't matter how much you've failed, the only thing that matters is what you decide to vibrate now. Vibration doesn't come from outside, it comes from repeated internal decisions. It comes from what you accept to tolerate and what you refuse to allow. It comes from how you talk to yourself. It comes from what story you choose to tell yourself. It comes from the vision you hold even when nothing seems to support it. High vibration is an act of silent power. It makes no noise, but it has an impact. When you change your vibration, you change your life. Even if no one understands it at first, even if your circumstances are slow to reflect it, even if your environment does not accompany you, because vibration does not wait for the world to change. In order to rise, vibration changes first, and the world adjusts afterwards. That is what Napoleon Hill observed for decades. Circumstances follow a person's internal vibration, like a shadow follows the body. Always, without exception, without favoritism, without good or bad luck, vibration is the hidden manual of human success. Starting today, you decide what frequency you hold, and that frequency will decide what life you live. Chapter 9. The Impulse of True Desire. There is a force that precedes all others. A force more powerful than intelligence, more decisive than talent, more creative than opportunity, more influential than luck, and more indispensable than any technical skill. That force is true desire, not a superficial desire, not a passing whim, not a comfortable fantasy, not a someday wish. We are talking about the desire that sets the mind on fire, the desire that opens paths where none exist, the desire that breaks down internal barriers, the desire that pushes you beyond fear, the desire that gives meaning to effort, the desire that transforms the ordinary person into someone extraordinary. This is the desire Napoleon Hill was talking about when he said that all wealth begins with a desire, but not an ambiguous desire, but a burning, defined, intense, and sustained one. Hill discovered After decades of studying people who transformed industries, overcame poverty, built empires, led movements, that they all had something in common, a desire so powerful that it became the central force in their lives. True desire is not felt, it is breathed, it awakens you, it makes you uncomfortable, it pushes you, it demands you. It is an internal force that does not allow you to return to conformity once you recognize it. Because when true desire appears, you can no longer live as you did before. Something inside you awakens. Something inside you no longer accepts the small. Something inside you wants more, demands more, dares more. That something is the impulse that changes a person's destiny, the desire you were born to feel. Every human being comes into this world with a natural impulse toward something. It is not chance, it is not coincidence, it is an inner calling, a direction, a seed. But most people never get to feel their true desire because they have been trained to repress it. From an early age, we are taught to be sensible, to be realistic, not to desire too much, not to aspire too much, not to question too much. We are taught to settle for minimal possibilities, to live within the margins of safety, to remain within limits that others have defined. And little by little, true desire becomes covered with layers. Fear, guilt, shame, inherited beliefs, negative experiences, comparisons, until people end up confusing comfort with peace, conformity with maturity, renunciation with wisdom. But inside you, even if you don't see it, even if you don't hear it, even if you've ignored it for years, your true desire is alive. And when you connect with it, when you recognize it, when you give it space, the energy of your life changes completely. He'll describe this kind of desire as a force that reorganizes the mind. It doesn't ask your permission, it wakes you up, it doesn't ask if you're ready, it sets you in motion, it doesn't depend on your circumstances. It transcends them. True desire is an internal compass that never fails. It doesn't always show you the entire path, but it never sends you in the wrong direction. Desire that is not extinguished by excuses. Most desires die on the surface. I'd like to, that would be great. Maybe someday. I wish I could. These desires are weak. They don't survive a bad day, they don't withstand an obstacle. They don't last long enough to create sustained action. But true desire is different. True desire is stubborn. True desire is persistent. True desire returns even when you try to ignore it, even when you consider it crazy, even when your environment says it's not possible. Even when your fears want to tear it down, true desire does not disappear because it was sown in your essence, not in your ego. And everything born in the essence has a mission. Hill saw this time and time again in the great achievers of his day. They were not the smartest, nor the strongest, nor the most prepared. They were the ones who had a desire so intense that any obstacle became a bridge. When your desire becomes your inner priority, your whole life reorganizes itself. When your desire becomes your reason, discipline ceases to hurt. When your desire takes over completely, sacrifice becomes purpose. True desire turns the impossible into a trajectory. The desire that sets you in motion even without knowing how. One of the biggest misconceptions in the world of personal development is to believe that you need to know how to achieve something before you can desire it intensely. This is backwards. The how comes after the desire, not before. Hill repeated that intense desire creates intelligence, not the other way around. When you desire something with all your strength, your mind becomes active, your creativity expands, your intuition becomes sharpened, your focus becomes selective, your subconscious begins to work for you. Favor, your energy aligns, your actions find direction. People who wait to know every step before they desire intensely never create anything great. People who allow true desire to dominate their energy find paths that others do not see. First you desire, then you discover, then you build, then you achieve. That's how creative impulse works. That's how human expansion works, the desire. That forces you to grow. True desire is not satisfied with you imagining it. It wants to transform you. That's why it can seem uncomfortable. That's why it demands courage, why it demands a greater version of yourself. And here is one of the deepest truths of Gill's thinking. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you become to deserve it. Your true desire wants you to grow. It wants you to become stronger. It wants you to break your old beliefs. It wants you to develop discipline. It wants you to overcome your fears. It wants you to sharpen your mindset. It wants you to raise your inner value, because your true desire did not come to please you, it came to expand you. Authentic desire is a spiritual training disguised as an earthly goal. When you decide to honor that desire, you inevitably become someone stronger, more aware, more capable. And when you become that person, desire ceases to be a dream and becomes a destiny. Desire that creates attraction. The vibration of a person who lives from their true desire is different, can be felt, noticed, and is contagious. It is a vibration of certainty, focus, and expansion. People with true desire do not walk, they advance. They do not talk, they transmit. They do not wait. They create. They do not resign themselves, they evolve. That internal state attracts compatible situations, ideas, people, and opportunities. Not because the universe does them favors, but because a mind focused on a burning desire is alert, available, and receptive to what life offers. It is a radar that picks up possibilities that others do not see. It is an energy that opens doors that seemed closed. It is a conviction that breaks down invisible limitations. Hill said that a burning desire is the most powerful magnet for human success. Not because it attracts by magic, but because it transforms the individual into someone capable of receiving what they ask for. True desire is magnetic, and you too become magnetic when you embrace it. Desire that demands definition. There is a key point that Gill always repeated. A vague desire has no power. A general desire has no focus. A lukewarm desire has no energy. For a desire to become destiny, it must be defined, it must take shape, it must take internal direction. It is not enough to want more money, more freedom, more success, more peace, more growth. True desire is specific, not because it limits, but because it concentrates your mental power. When desire is clear, the mind responds. When the mind responds, the path opens. When the path opens, life changes. Desire that accepts no excuses. People who live from their true desire act differently. They make decisions faster. They have more tolerance for effort. They get up when they fall. They learn from their mistakes. They adapt. They reinvent themselves. They persist beyond the average, not because they are stronger, but because their desire is greater than any excuse. True desire makes sacrifices part of the process. They don't hurt the same, they don't weigh the same, they are not experienced the same. When you truly desire something, you don't suffer from acting, you suffer from not doing so. You don't carry the effort, you carry the urgency to move forward. True desire changes your relationship with commitment. You no longer do things because you have to, you do them because they bring you closer to what your soul is asking for. The desire that defines your future. Everything you will be tomorrow begins with what you desire intensely today. Your future life depends on the desire you choose to nurture right now. Hill said that a burning desire is the starting point of all creation. What you don't truly desire, you will not build. What you truly desire, you will inevitably pursue, and what you pursue with intensity ends up taking shape. True desire is compressed destiny, condensed future, your potential. knocking at the door. When you honor it, your life expands. When you ignore it, your life fades away. This chapter is your reminder. You are not here for small desires. You are not here for imported desires. You are not here for desires.